HR needs to be deliberate. They learned operational excellence in the past 5 years. They learned how to design a plan, set a plan, but they need to be agile within that deliberateness because the information is changing moment by moment in terms of what they know about their business, what kind of technology could impact the business, what are the societal changes that are happening.
Welcome to Secret Ops, the podcast uncovering the world of operations, one episode at a time. I'm your host, Ariana Cafone, and today's guests are Sarah Smart and Sofia Whelan, co-founders of HorizonHuman. Now, they are bringing about 35 years of HR experience to this conversation, and it was so refreshing to talk about because ultimately, how should we be looking at HR? What should we be thinking about as HR leaders? There's all of these aspects that are really difficult to unpack, and they do a wonderful job today doing exactly that. So if you're in operations, if you're in HR, or if you're just a human working in a workplace, you should really take a listen to this episode. Let's jump in. Sofia, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on to Secret Ops. It's been a bit since we have visited the topic of HR within the world, and a lot has changed, I think, since we've had this conversation. So can we just kick it off with what is happening within the realm of HR? And you both have different specializations, so I would love to get your individual perspectives as well. Sarah, maybe since you're in the middle here, I'll have you kick off. What are you seeing on your side?
There are a couple of themes that I'm seeing across HR organizations that we work with. And while I do a lot of work in talent acquisition, and that's certainly my expertise, definitely have expanded that work over time. HR is kind of at the epicenter of the chaos right now. Since 2019 with the pandemic, HR has had to rapidly evolve from not just a strategy and advisory function, but an operations function with true operational excellence, financial acumen, technological acumen. And it's been done very quickly. It's had to happen, based on crisis upon crisis upon crisis, as opposed to a planned evolution of the business. And we're at our next inflection point with AI really entering, the vernacular for almost every HR leader, but new technology, new way of using, new consequences for using it improperly or using it at all. When you sort of stack all of those things on top of each other, I would say that my HR brethren are tired. They've done a lot.
I've been feeling it. Yeah. I've been feeling it in operations, and you just summarizing that so beautifully. It just has been one thing after the other after the other. There's been no gaps there at all.
2019 does feel like 10 years ago for me.
Yes.
I'm sure that it feels the same for almost any HR expert, whether they're in technology, operations, compliance, strategic advisory work, whatever it might be. That's how they feel. And HR, has to maintain its seat at the table and bring relevance in this new world as well. So, putting on the pants one leg at a time and moving forward.
Yeah, I hear you.
Sophia, what do you think?
Yeah, my take is, you kind of got to the summary for me at the end there around maintaining relevance. But I think that HR, from like starting out as kind of a personnel department, kind of the compliance police, to then, technology being introduced and then being more relevant from kind of like, well, we can standardize, we can optimize processes, we can standardize, we can be more efficient from an operations perspective, right? We hold a lot of the basic functions of getting people paid, which is really kind of one of the most important reasons why people go to work, right? So, but sort of going beyond that and then and continuing to sort of evolve into sort of the talent space where, we can actually do more with HR than just processing payroll and being compliance police. We can, help you hire and retain the best and the brightest. And as proven, that's going to help you kind of maintain your competitive advantage. So HR kind of getting more relevant and maintaining kind of that relevance. It's always tied to what's happening macroeconomically and in the world around us. And I think that when it's, when we had the war for talent, for example, it was like, how do we retain? How do we create the best experience for our employees? And then it was all about employee experience. And then COVID hit and sort of the 2020 and George Floyd in America, everything, all the protests, and HR definitely had to really focus on DE&I, and then like post that. And now we're entering this, AI, getting back to what Sarah said, is actually really, instead of fighting for its relevance and trying to like really kind of keep up with what's going on, HR is really now in the driver's seat, I believe, of really figuring out the human aspect of the AI transformation and what does future of work mean for humans. And nobody's better positioned in an organization to do that than HR. So that's what I think, that's where we're at. And it's exciting.
As you both are speaking, I'm realizing the emotional weight that HR has. So I work for a lot of small businesses, startups. That's like my sweet spot. And operations is a catch-all. Sometimes we fulfill HR responsibilities, and we are sort of the emotional heart of the business as well. And there is multiple levels that you're having to navigate. Compliance, obviously, like first and foremost. Are we complying with laws? Can we remain open? Awesome. Are we paying people? Cool. And then there's all of a sudden this like society emotional roller coaster that we've been going on that sometimes you're directly trying to respond to. And sometimes it becomes the subconscious of how we behave in a workplace. And it's really hard to know where to go next and how to support your team members. I feel like sometimes I'm blindly supporting people because I'm also trying to figure it out as things are occurring. How do you move from a place of reactivity, which we've just been at year after year, to a place of being proactive about this? Are there certain patterns that in behavior that allow you to sort of think about this differently? Is there ways of contextualizing it for the team? How do you make that shift happen so we all aren't so burnt out?
I think that is probably the number one question. And I love this question. I have lots of different answers to it, but I'll sort of boil it down to HR needs to be deliberate. HR learned to be deliberate over the past 5 years. They learned operational excellence in the past 5 years. They learned how to design a plan, set a plan, but they need to be agile within that deliberateness because the information is changing moment by moment in terms of what they know about their business, what kind of technology could impact the business, what are the societal changes that are happening. So have a North Star, guide yourself towards the North Star, but be prepared and be agile enough to shift throughout. And that is a skill set, a new skill set in many ways for HR, the idea of agility and really actually managing as an agile leader as opposed to managing through a plan and your plan gets derailed. And then you say, great, my plan's off track by 2 weeks, as opposed to saying, maybe I should take a different track so I can get it back on track or deliver still to an outcome. And that's the last piece that I'll say, which is HR needs to focus on outcomes, not the how we get there. Right. So what is the outcome that you're trying to drive, whether it's a technology transformation, a business transformation, a culture transformation? What's the outcome that you're trying to deliver on, and focus on that as opposed to the journey that gets you there?
I think ruthlessly prioritizing is like one way. And I think that's kind of what Sarah's getting to. And also unlearning a behavior that I think HR has been, and I don't know about I've only worked in HR and on HR transformation, right? So you tell me, but I feel like HR needs to unlearn the behavior of coming up with ways of transforming itself and innovating itself constantly, because the business isn't asking for that, right? So really, when you're prioritizing, yes, you kind of have to know what's coming and what's, some cool things out there, but don't just sort of come up with those for the sake of trying to be relevant, but really listen to the business, listen to your clients, and then like ruthlessly prioritize. I think that's going to help you from that knee-jerk sort of reacting always.
Do you think that the makeup of an HR team has had to change in skill set? So from an operational standpoint, for me, I went in being just a super duper organizer and people manager. That was like my main skill set. And then I had to learn technology. Now I have to learn data management. Now I've got to know compliance. Oh, now I need to learn HR law. So there's all of these layers that I've had to learn. And as things become more complex, I just need people that specialize in knowing these things because there's just way too much knowledge to have to understand. So when it comes to the makeup of an HR team today, how has the skill sets that are needed to fuel HR delivery changed in the last couple of years?
And it's a great question. It's something that Sophia and I talk about all the time. And it's actually part of our practice when we're advising clients as well. From the top on down, the skill sets inside of HR have evolved and need to evolve even further than where they are. Your CHRO is no longer just the senior most, a strategic advisor to the CEO and maybe the board around all things related to the people inside the company. They also need to be a technology expert. Now, that doesn't mean that they need to be a CTO, but they need to understand the implications of technology transformation across the business. You sort of start moving that further down inside the organization. Talent acquisition in particular is really being impacted. Talent acquisition leaders of today and the future, they need to own their tech stack and they need to understand how that tech stack works in a very different way than how they had to work even 3 or 4 years ago. You need to be well versed in compliance. You don't need to be a compliance expert. And you need to know how to ask the right questions across the organization that are well beyond HR's purview today. Tell me about that workflow. Why is that integration so hard and disrupting all of the business that we need to deliver on? What are our KPIs, and moving much more towards measurements and data and analytics? I think the final skill that we're really seeing a lot of emphasis on, and I'm going to pass this to Sophia because it's an area that she's really passionate about, is workforce planning. It has been kind of, the back office part of HR for a long time, and I think it's about ready to take its real seat at the table. So Sophia, over to you, I think.
Yes, it is something that kind of has been elusive for some reason for HR teams. And they've struggled in kind of having worked with so many HR teams for so many years now. They've struggled to really move the needle on this because, it's headcount planning, but it's not really a finance thing. And then talent planning, but then talent plan doesn't have the same gravitas. And sort of you have to pull together lots of different pieces. And HR has traditionally not been very good at stitching together their different kind of flows or the different kind of functional areas within HR and outside of HR. So I think that's a new skill.
That is such a important point, that hiring and figuring out that pipeline to hire is a multi-team. It's like pretty much the entire company's problem, not just one team's problem.
100%.
It is a weird thing to convey and communicate, but like if you don't enter your sales deals at the stage that they're at, I won't know that we need to hire at this, like that. It's like all these dominoes. That is such a profound insight.
Yeah. And I think, well, thank you. But I also think that now more than ever, like with the kind of introduction of AI, we can talk more about that as we talk about the future, but with the introduction of AI and AI doing tasks, AI potentially doing whole jobs, HR's role in the workforce planning or strategic talent planning needs to focus on what are the things that are going to continuously be done by humans, be it tasks, be it jobs, whatever, and what are the skills that we need, and what do those careers look like? Because HR needs to be planning for that, part so that they can help sustain the business going forward, and part so that they can help, again, back to that emotional support dog that HR is. HR needs to support the employees that are hearing that AI is going to take our jobs. Well, no, they're going to take some jobs, but not these jobs. And let's be transparent and let's tell you how to sort of build a career in those jobs that we're going to place bets are going to continuously be done by humans. I have a story to tell also about skills, sort of like how HR skills are evolving. Sarah and I were lucky enough to work together at a large financial institution in the United States. The team was very kind of forward thinking in terms of how to organize HR, doing all of these things that we're talking about, like focusing on outcomes and bringing in technology in a much bigger way and bringing in the thinking around end user experience, sort of productizing the HR organization. And when we looked at the skills that we needed in HR, I'd say we had about 80% of people that knew HR when we really needed 20%. So like imagine like you have 80% of your folks are, you really just need 20%. So you only needed a few of those HR experts in those roles. Now there are kind of T-shaped teams, like where certain roles in HR need to be deep, and in certain roles you need to be kind of more broad. But yeah, that skill mix is really changing, and it's, like Sarah said, something that we're helping our clients figure out on a day-to-day basis.
There's also the like one step forward and two steps back that I'm finding with AI application. So, AI, it's being applied in a lot of different ways. And then it's bad. Like it's being applied badly. I'll take customer service chatbots. Like, I hate them. I think they suck. They usually are pulled from these Q&A forums. They really don't answer people's questions. You can lose customers because of them. And it's not actually a good use of AI in some regards. In other regards, it's super duper helpful. But I've found that there is a lot of okay, we're going to automate this. Oh, psych, that didn't work out. We're going to go back to a human, and then an overcorrection of something. Have you been finding that whiplash as well within the companies that you work with? And how do you navigate that? Especially because there's that emotional kind of tail that swings back and forth.
I think that companies are learning as they go right now. I think that companies that are adopting tech are probably adopting it not in as iterative a fashion as I would recommend, right? So start with a small pilot, see how it works, and then expand. There's a lot of big bang implementations going on. Some of that's actually driven by the software and technology that already exists inside of these major enterprises, where there's a big release from software from the cloud, and it has to impact the entire organization, and then all of a sudden everyone finds out that it doesn't work at the same time, and that's a fun one. But I think that I would recommend iterative experimentation in small groups, pilot. I love doing a paper prototype. Okay, what happens if we just write it down on a piece of paper before we build anything? And then you can move to, a chat GPT prototype. If you want to build something quick, you can prototype really fast with AI. And then you can pilot with a small group and gather all of your learnings. And then I think that, the other piece around the whiplash is I don't think companies are really good at explaining why they're bringing AI or any new technology to the organization. So the change messaging up front and the change and adoption curve throughout the implementation of any new business process change or technology, just like you would do it in operations, has to be crystal clear in HR. Has to be crystal clear. Yeah, the why.
I can't. Yeah. You have to have the why. We have to know.
Oftentimes that why, actually, the best ideas come from the people themselves. So that's why I'm such a big fan of, user-centric design. And, we used to call it discovery, right? You really go in deep and sort of discover what's really not working, which are your top problems that we can solve. And then you try and start solving those. And the customer experience example is really interesting because it seemed like, oh, this is an easy thing with LLM. We can put all this information and we can put it out. So if it's easy enough, it's usually not going to give you that much value ultimately. So I think that's sort of the hit the easy button, and you may regret some things. Yeah.
It's true. The language I think around AI is that it's super seamless, it's super easy to onboard, it's super easy to do those things. But anytime you're applying a platform or a process, it has to be about the people. And if it's not actually applying to the people that it's serving, customers, internal facing, you're missing something in that onboarding process. I work with a lot of founders, and it's that, oh, if we move to this platform, we'll save all this time, we'll save all this money. And it's never about the platform. It's always about the people and what they know and why they're doing the things that they're doing. So if we get back into talking about building this, future-proof team, I haven't recruited in many years. And I got to be honest, because recruitment is exhausting. It is a very tiring and thankless process. What would you say are the things that you're seeing today in the recruitment HR realm that are exciting, and maybe some things to keep an eye out for?
Because of my broken ankle, I did not get to attend HR Tech this year, which I'm sad about. And I know that, 80 to 90% of that floor was technology aimed at talent acquisition. And everyone had the word AI somewhere in, either their brochureware or actually on their booth somewhere. So, I'd say that what I think is happening is there is a little bit of a gold rush, some would call it a bubble, in recruiting and recruiting technology around AI. We have seen companies try and reduce their recruiter workforces, some successfully and some not, by the introduction of new technology. We've also seen the general demand for jobs, so the recruiter's livelihood of volume of roles to recruit for, diminishing because other roles inside the company are being enabled through technology. So there's sort of this impact that's happening to recruiters, the role of the recruiter around the world, in terms of probably there's going to be less of them going forward. But what is happening and what I am excited about is the technology that's going to help make those recruiters that remain in their roles, their jobs easier, their jobs better, putting them more into that strategic advisory role. A career recruiter who's been doing recruiting for 10, 15, 20 years is the best possible advisor that you could expect to have, working with a senior executive or a hiring manager of any level and helping them make a decision, helping them to treat a candidate well, and to helping to make sure that there's a great onboarding experience. Our recruiters of today are stuck in the muck of administrivia. So many different clicks, so many, I won't even tell you the number of clicks that it takes a recruiter to get people through a workflow in a large enterprise. It is in the thousands, and it's shocking. The number of, I need to check a manual list, or I need to send all these emails because all of my processes are offline. AI can come in and solve that pretty quickly. And AI as automation, smart automation, is a really useful tool. What I watch out for in recruiting in particular is when AI says it's going to replace a recruiter in the decision-making process. Why do I say that? Because AI is trained by humans. AI has bias in its algorithm. And unless there is a true effort inside the organization to continuously monitor their AI for, and I'm not even going to say disparate impact, because that's clearly on the table here in the US too, right? I'm going to say monitor the AI for ethical decision making, and monitor AI for making recommendations where the individuals that are hired are actually the high performing individuals that you would expect them to be. That's a huge risk. And there are some companies that are working on it and doing it really well. And then there are some companies that are developing ways to audit their processes. But I think the biggest risk that I see is that bias and that impact in terms of the selection criteria in recruiting. And that's what everyone went after for the first time. That's the tool that everyone tried to develop the first time out, because it's the biggest problem in talent acquisition. How fast can you get to the best qualified applicants so that you can move them through the funnel faster and get a great hire as quickly as possible? I've seen that backfire in large companies. I've seen it backfire in small companies. It's not just running afoul of the law, it's creating a feeling of distrust in a really important function in HR and a really important function in a company. And I don't think that companies can actually sustain that lack of trust.
That's such a good point, where if you let AI do AI's thing, ultimately you are gaining or losing trust of humans in the process. If you have a person that made a decision to roll out a process that's fueled by AI, and then for some reason that's backfiring from a recruitment standpoint, it comes back ultimately to a human that had made that decision. Sophia, on your side, what would you say are some things to watch out for and some things to sort of maybe lean a little bit into?
What we just talked about here, it really shows kind of the practicalities of what happens when you're actually putting AI in the wrong place in the process. When you're putting AI against the wrong task, that could backfire spectacularly. And I think that's sort of like, that's where the easy button isn't a thing. Like, we should really look at the processes, look at the problems we're trying to solve, where are the friction points, and then really be deliberate around, okay, what can we solve with technology? Not just because it's available, because some might say, we can filter your million candidates and we can give you the top 20 within, 2 minutes, and a recruiter will take weeks and never get to all of them. Is that really is that where we want to apply the AI, just because it can or says that it can? Or should we be way more deliberate around where we put it in? Like, can we moving candidates through stages, whatever it is, like some of the back end processing, some of that stuff is maybe the right place to start. So I think that be very deliberate around kind of the problem you're solving, and be very deliberate around what of those problems you want to solve with technology, and thinking through all those implications.
To be deliberate, you have to slow down and you really have to think. And that's counterintuitive to what business and everything is wanting us to do these days. So there is that role that we have to say, okay, let's just pump the brakes for a quick second. Let's get back to basics. Let's look at these things before we jump in there.
Yeah. It's dangerous, but it's dangerous for HR to, not dangerous, but it's where HR needs to tread lightly, to not kind of come across as slowing things down, being the compliance police, not understanding what the business needs. Like, this is AI's, this is sort of HR's little complex that we have. Like, we always have to prove ourselves. And and sometimes we sort of end up doing, over indexing on stuff like that too. So, but by training ourselves in HR to be, to think about kind of the problems in chunks and think about the outcomes, doing it in smaller chunks in a more agile fashion will hopefully help us not to pump the brakes too much.
That makes total sense. You don't want to be the buzzkill in the room being like, wait, hold on. You want to be the one that's engaging and moving the dial forward. It's amazing. In all of the highs and lows, you have to have you have to be even keeled to be in HR. You really have to, be that middle balancing man to make sure that everything is thought through correctly, goes fast enough, but not too fast. It's intentional enough, but not too slow. It's all of these you sort of have to be perfect, and none of us are. So it's quite challenging. And if we look towards the future of HR, both of you founded HorizonHuman, which is helping people to understand what this is supposed to look like. Help us look inside the magic ball of what is coming down the pipeline in HR. What are some things that you're seeing, and what are some things that you're coaching other businesses to pay attention to or action to be ready for what's to come?
I'll go back to something that Sofia said, which is user-centric design. And I firmly believe that the next skill in HR that needs to emerge is UX, user experience. Because we in HR are now in the business of implementing business processes and systems that can impact an employee's experience at a company. And I don't just mean, do we pay you on time, but how many clicks does it take to get to your paycheck or see all of your benefits? As a leadership team, I would be working pretty closely with a CHRO and probably their ELT around, okay, great. What's your North Star? What's your strategy? What are the outcomes that you're driving? And then what are the deliberate initiatives that you need to take on and start to work? One of the challenges that I've seen in HR is that HR tries to do everything, and it tries to do everything for everyone. And there is a lot of, I call it the HR pretzel, right? You're sort of pretzeling yourself to make everything work. You don't have enough people on your HR team to deliver all the initiatives. The priorities are shifting. So going back to sort of that ruthless prioritization of, okay, great. What are the initiatives that are actually going to get us to X? If it's efficiency in HR, or if it's building trust in our culture, or, it is enabling the business to grow, right? What's the outcome? How do you line up HR initiatives behind that? And then you have to be good at saying no, or yes, and is my favorite phrase. Yes, and we can't do that this year, or yes, and we can't do that without additional funding are all the things that we're seeing HR leaders needing to make decisions on. I would also tell HR leaders, toe the line on AI for right now. Have a use case. Deliberately work with your teams on a use case before you go out and buy your first shiny AI product or get sucked into something. Had I gone to a conference this year, I can guarantee you I would have seen people wandering the floors basically saying, ooh, I want to buy that, or I want to buy that. And we see that all the time. And I get the allure of the shiny object, but avoid it. Avoid it as much as you can, and really anchor on what business problem are you trying to solve? And then you can start to look for products or business processes, or build it yourself.
I'm thinking in my head, when you go into like the Container Store and you're like, I need to organize my home. And to organize my home, I need to buy 5,000 plastic containers to organize my home. And then you bring it home and then it actually makes chaos. I feel like it's the same thing. Like I'll go to my parents' house. I'm like, Mom, not another plastic rotating container. You don't need that. You just need less things. And there's that kind of mentality too. It's not always adding stuff, but removing as well, and saying, hey, what don't we need?
I like that a lot. And I think HR could really take a hard look at all the things that we do, back to my earlier point, like just like all the things that we've sort of spun up because that was one way to stay relevant or another. I like my provocative sort of futuristic view of HR. I'm going to offer it up. I think it's sort of it's a kind of two-sided organization. One side of the organization is truly the advisors to the business leaders, different than sort of the business partner advisors that we see today. Yes, some similarities, but truly that are advising on what we talked about earlier, the strategic workforce planning, understanding exactly what skills do you have in the organizations, what skills do you need, what skills gaps do you have, okay, how are we going to close those gaps? Are we going to hire? Are we going to train? Like focus, like all of your efforts on that. And it's kind of the org design that comes with that, right? Like how do you kind of optimize for the best outcomes? The rest of HR is platform. It's sort of, most of it should be done by itself. Like, you're not going to need HR to handhold a leader. You don't want to have HR handholding a manager on how to do a performance review, or handholding somebody through their onboarding process. Like, there are so many things that HR does that I think can be much more productized, platformed, automated, optimize, use all the buzzwords. And I think that if HR sort of thinks in that way, okay, what do we then need to set ourselves up for that future? I think that's the transformation that I'm excited about. So if anyone is listening and wants to jump on that transformation, give me a call, because that is literally my passion project.
I'm with you on that. There's recent software, not to like add software, but you can do a screen recording and it makes it into a step-by-step walkthrough of things in like 15 minutes. Now, for me, that is a huge time savings, and it scales with the team, and it helps people where they're at. Some people want to watch with a video, with a voiceover. Some people want to see the screenshots. And I'm with you. There's only so many humans that can sit down and be able to walk you through certain things. And most of the time you just need a little bit of extra help with documentation to kind of get you where you need to go. Again, humans are always there if you need them, but you don't need them as much as you may think in that regard. I don't need to hold your hand walking you through how to look up X, Y, and Z. You can do that. You're capable and awesome, and I've got this documentation here to show you that. We've come to the end, but we need to know more about the two of you as human beings. So to do that, I'm going to ask some rapid fire questions to learn more about you. And we're going to do a little reverse switch. Sophia, I'm going to have you answer these questions first, and then Sarah, I'll have you go next. So first question is, what is your favorite part of the day?
Morning. I'm a morning person. I feel like my thoughts are good and clear, and I have energy, and I get most of my good work done in the morning.
Sarah?
Oh, I'm a night owl. Right around 7 p.m. is probably, and it may also be a factor of how my day runs, right? Which is so many meetings that I actually get to start thinking and doing at around 7 p.m. But I am definitely a night owl.
What is something outside of work that makes you little kid happy?
Oh, time with friends. I just had a college reunion this past weekend, and I got to see people I haven't seen in years, in some cases decades, and it just filled me up.
The last time I was little kid, well, kind of young adult, teenage happy, was when I went to see Morrissey in concert, because it brought up so much like teenage feelings, and I was like so happy. So I would say, like, go and seeing an artist that you have loved for a long time, or that you love currently.
What is the best purchase you've made under $50?
It's a book. I mean, it doesn't have to be any specific book, but I do think like books bring me a lot of joy.
This is my most recent purchase under 50 is a pen from the brand Baron Fig. I'm a pen weirdo, right? So like I have very specific pens that are important to me that help me write better, and I really am analog. Like I use in notebooks, and I have a whole series of notebooks. Unfortunately, none of them are under $50. I believe this pen it writes very smoothly. It comes with ink cartridges. And I would say, I think it's probably like number one voted on the New York Strategist best pen list. So like, I'm not alone in being obsessed with this pen.
Do you all know my husband owns that business, by the way?
No, yes. He does? It's the best pen.
My husband owns Baron Fig. He's one of my clients. Yes.
I did not know that at all. This is literally sitting next to me. It may not be less than $50. Don't tell them that, though.
No, I won't. But if you look up Joey Cofone, that's my husband. I interviewed him. You should check it out.
I'm obsessed with this pen.
They're the best. They're the best. They're really excellent pens. I am totally biased, but I do think they're really super excellent. That is hilarious. Last question for you both, which is, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be an interior designer.
Fabulous.
I want to be probably a luxury hotel owner. So Sophia can come and decorate Absolutely. My luxury hotel, and it needs to be in a wonderful location that is gorgeous and soul replenishing, and I can create a haven for anyone who needs one.
Oh my God. All right. Can we make that a reality today? It doesn't need to be when we grow up too much, right? Sophia, Sarah, thank you so much for your time and your thoughtfulness and just your breadth of experience. If people are listening and they're saying, hey, I want to learn more about what these two are doing, where should we point them?
You can always point them to us on LinkedIn. We're pretty active on LinkedIn, or www.HorizonHuman.com, where you can see our most recent podcasts and publications, as well as periodic blogs, which we need to get better at doing.
Case studies, client testimonials, and all of that. Yeah.
There's just not enough time in the day. But there was enough time in the day for you all to come into Secret Ops. I appreciate, again, you both so much coming on. Secret Ops listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you know of somebody that could love a little HR knowledge, love a little ops knowledge, send this way, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.